remaining influences are economic, technological, social, as well as ethical and corporate social responsibility. Okay, we'll start off with economic. Economic is a key influence in terms of human resource management, and predominantly we're talking about the economic cycle. So the demand for labour is determined by the demand for goods and services within the economy, i.e. it's a derived demand. From a structural perspective, the increase in the service sector away from manufacturing in Australia has meant more people are employed in property, business, retailing, trade, tourism, educational services and hospitality. And that has an influence on human resources because it relates to the type of workers that need to be managed at each individual workplace. Additionally, globalisation has had a significant influence on the Australian economy, and Australian businesses are competing more and more on a global level, and also with local elements of transnational corporations. Many restructure and outsource their non-core functions or subcontract production to compete effectively. And there's an increasing role for international organisations such as the International Labour Organisation when Australian businesses operate internationally. And this means that human resource management is leaving the shores of Australia, and often it's having to deal with human resource issues on a global scale rather than at a domestic level. And that adds a certain level of complexity to those relationships. Technological is the next key influence. And it's a major source of improvement. Technological change is seen as a major source of improvements in productivity, communication and competition between businesses. Labour can be moved offshore with the use of virtual teams thanks to connectedness, for example. Telecommuting means people can operate anywhere, anytime, avoiding traffic and distance. And it can also replace human labour, which results in retrenchments. Technology that requires human operation also requires training. And those last 2 points, the replacement of human labour and the training of workers to engage and use technology, are examples of how human resource management's role has changed somewhat over the years. Whereas historically they were just dealing with hiring workers, training them and paying them. Now a lot of that is, okay, yes, it's about training them, but also it's training them to engage more effectively with technology. And it's also having to retrench or deliver the news that a worker has lost their job because technology has replaced their position. If you think about Ford, for example, it's manufacturing in Geelong, when they closed down their plant, those workers were effectively lost their jobs because technology replaced their jobs. The 5,000 Qantas staff who lost their job, some of them lost their job because of technological advancements, and it was the job of human resources to tell them that they had lost their job. Socially, another key influence, changing work patterns, increased casualisation in the workforce, so employers increasingly hiring workers as casual staff as opposed to part-time or permanent full-time. The mobility of workers are now able to take their labour elsewhere with much greater ease. Decreasing number of blue-collar jobs, i.e. labour-intensive type jobs, manufacturing type jobs. There's a greater diversity in the workforce, more ethnically diverse. Increasing female employment and a greater outsourcing of jobs, getting specialists from outside the organisation to undertake that work. And work hours have become more flexible, and more businesses need to stay open longer to meet the needs of the customer. In certain areas, skill shortages are definitely developing, which is potentially leading to workers coming in from overseas who do have those skills, adding a layer of complexity to the role of human resources. And also another big one is the ageing workforce. So as Australia, as the baby boomers get older and continue to stay in the workforce, they are comprising an ageing element of the workforce. Some other social influences are living standards. We have some of the highest living standards in the world, and that includes things such as occupational health and safety, wage increases, performance bonuses, leave benefits, our superannuation system and superannuation entitlements. And as living standards rise, workers are likely to push for even better working conditions, and that can put pressure on wages, and it could also lead to redundancies because organisations can't afford to pay those high wages of all their workers. Lastly, ethics and corporate social responsibility. There's a diagram there from your textbook really talking about ethics and its impact on the workplace. But ethics, as we've covered before, refers to the values and beliefs of individuals. It has an influence on human resources as the process is ultimately carried out by individuals, i.e. the human resource process is ultimately carried out by individuals. The ethics of the managers will influence the way they manage their staff, and if issues are not handled in an ethical manner, they can lead to poor morale, low productivity, heavy costs and industrial disputes. Establishing some key elements should help an organisation attain good ethics and achieve corporate social responsibility, i.e. a code of conduct in relation to ethics, a code of ethics, and a code of practice.